shocking truth. When my best friend became my husband's secret lover. I'm honestly not sure where to begin, but I suppose I'll start at the beginning. I've been with my husband since I was 19 and he was 22. We got married 6 years ago, built a life together, and have two beautiful children. Now, I'm 6 months pregnant with our third child, and our home is filled with both joy and uncertainty. 2 years ago, my world shifted when I learned that my dad had been diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. My father is my only parent now, having lost my mom when I was just 12. He has always been my rock, my favorite person in the world. His laugh could light up any room, and his big, warm bear hugs made all my troubles seem to melt away. Whenever I had a hard day, he would simply listen to me without judgment, allowing me to vent my frustrations and pain. His love and support have always meant the world to me, and the thought of losing him makes life seem dull and gray. About 5 months ago, after a follow-up appointment, we discovered that the treatments weren't working. The doctor bluntly told us that my dad had months, not years, left. From that day on, his condition worsened. I watched in horror as he began to lose his memory one day. He looked at the dog my husband had given me for my 21st birthday and said, "Wow, that's a nice dog. Where'd you get it?" It was heartbreaking to see him slip away, his once vibrant personality fading with each passing day. During all of this, my husband has been my absolute rock. He has been there for me every step of the way, holding my hand and offering comfort when I needed it most. He took care of our children with so much love and attention, and I always knew I could count on him, even on my darkest days. He encouraged me to take time off from work to be there for my dad and for our family. About a month later, we discovered I was pregnant again, and although I had not yet given up my job, my husband reassured me that quitting would actually be a blessing. He told me that it would save us a small fortune on daycare costs, and that focusing on family was more important right now. So, I eventually did quit my job, believing I was doing what was best for everyone. In the midst of all the emotional chaos, there was one constant source of comfort, a friendship that had lasted since childhood. My best friend has been like a sister to me. Our families are intertwined, and our bond is as strong as any family tie. My mom and her mom grew up together, and we always supported each other like sisters. When my dad's prognosis was updated, I rushed to my best friend's house. She welcomed me with open arms, holding me for hours as I cried my heart out. I always believed that if there were soulmates in the form of friends, she was mine. Thick as thieves is exactly how my mom used to describe our friendship. But then, one fateful morning changed everything. I had been up early taking care of our 3-year-old who was sick when I noticed something off about our household routine. My husband's work alarms were going off in the background, a habit he usually kept to himself. I turned off one of the alarms and gently woke him up. He mumbled that he had been working late the previous night and decided to take the morning off. As he rolled over to go back to sleep, I went to silence the rest of his alarms. That's when I saw Aita text message from my best friend flashing on his lock screen. The message read, "I'm assuming since there hasn't been an angry pregnant lady on my doorstep, you haven't told her about us yet." Time seemed to freeze in that moment. My heart pounded in my chest as I grabbed his phone and walked away to read the messages. As I scrolled through their conversation, the full weight of the betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. For 4 long months, my husband had been involved in an affair with my best friend. 4 months of lies and deceit, hidden behind the facade of a loving and supportive relationship. I felt as though the ground had vanished beneath my feet, leaving me stranded in a chasm of disbelief and pain. I know some people say that I should have seen the warning signs. They might claim that I should have trusted my instincts or noticed the little hints along the way, but nothing in his behavior had ever raised any alarms. He had been kind, gentle, and attentive all these years. There were no suspicious late-night outings, no lingering touches, no furtive glances that would have given me any reason to doubt him. Everything was exactly as it had always been. That's what makes the betrayal so sickening me, best friend. The person I trusted above all others had been hiding this secret, referring to him as her brother while sleeping with him behind my back. Despite the crushing weight of this discovery, I have not allowed myself to collapse completely. I still am the loving wife and caring mother I have always been. I continue to care for my children, ensuring they are loved, protected, and given the attention they deserve. I talk to my dad every day, asking how he is doing, even though his memory slips away more with each passing day. I have not let the overwhelming pain of betrayal consume me, nor have I let it affect the way I nurture my family. But now I am faced with a choice that seems impossible. I know what I have to do next to confront my husband about his infidelity, to challenge my best friend on the betrayal that has shattered the trust I once held dear. But the thought of doing so fills me with dread. I fear that this confrontation will tear apart the very fabric of my family, leaving me with nothing but a broken support system and endless regret. I am terrified of losing the only stable anchor in my life during this storm of chaos and heartache. For today, however, I have decided that I need a moment of peace. I need these last 24 hours to gather my thoughts, to brace myself for the inevitable confrontation that awaits tomorrow. I can't bear the thought of reacting in anger or saying things I might regret in the heat of the moment. I have promised myself that once I face this betrayal head-on, I will no longer give my best friend the satisfaction of a response. After today, I will cut her out of my life completely, erasing the memory of someone who was once my closest ally and confidant. This betrayal, coupled with the mounting challenges of my father's illness and the imminent arrival of our third child, feels like the hardest storm I have ever faced. I am caught in a maelstrom of emotions: grief, anger, sadness, and disbelief, all swirling together in a torrent that threatens to overwhelm me. Yet, I know deep down that I must weather this storm, not just for myself but for my children, who depend on me for strength and guidance. Every day I remind myself that I have faced hardship before. My father's illness taught me the true meaning of resilience and the importance of cherishing every moment with the people we love. Now, as I stand on the precipice of an uncertain future, I draw on that same strength. I refuse to let this betrayal define me or dictate the course of my life. I will confront the reality of this situation, even if it means enduring further pain and heartbreak. In the coming days, I will talk to my husband. I will ask him why he betrayed my trust, why he allowed himself to be led astray by someone I once called my best friend. I will listen to his reasons, no matter how hard they may be to accept, and I will try to understand what led him down this dark path. I know that there will be no easy answers or simple explanations. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, and I am not sure if I will ever be able to look at him the same way again. Yet, despite the overwhelming betrayal and the fear of losing everything that holds my life together, I have also learned a valuable lesson about strength and self-worth. I have discovered that I am capable of facing even the most painful truths, that I can stand tall even when my world is crumbling around me. I must find a way to rebuild the shattered pieces of my heart and create a new path forward, one that prioritizes honesty, love, and the well-being of my children. For now, I will hold on to the precious moments I have with my family. I will cherish the small, joyful instances, the laughter of my children, the comforting embrace of my father, and even the bittersweet memories of a friendship that has turned sour. I know that the road ahead will be long and filled with difficult choices, but I also believe that I have the strength to overcome this challenge. As I sit here reflecting on everything that has happened, I realize that this storm will eventually pass. It may leave scars, but those scars will serve as a reminder of the resilience I possess and the love that continues to sustain me. I owe it to myself and to my children to move forward with hope, even in the midst of heartbreak. Tomorrow I will confront the truth, and step by step I will rebuild the life that has been shattered by betrayal.
I discovered my wife's betrayal. Now I feel paralyzed. For 13 years, I had built a life with my wife and our 3 children, a life that I believed was full of love and trust. But a few months ago, I began to notice changes in her behavior that made me feel uneasy. Her job required her to travel frequently, and every month she would be away for 3 or 4 days. During these trips, she was always extremely busy and would never agree to video calls. Even her voice calls, especially late at night, were few and far between. This secretive behavior left me with a growing suspicion that something was not right. When she returned from her business trips, I sensed a cold distance between us that hadn't been there before. The warm, caring woman I once knew seemed to have become reserved and detached. I also noticed that she was extremely protective of her phone, always keeping it close and hidden. Instead of confronting her with anger or suspicion, I chose to do the exact opposite. I wanted to be supportive and loving, maybe too supportive. I started to remind her of how much I missed her when she was away, and even emphasized how the kids missed her presence. I would greet her with flowers and sometimes a small gift, hoping that my constant affection would help bridge the growing gap between us. I thought that by showering her with kindness, she might open up and reveal what was really happening. I believed that perhaps I was overthinking things and that my care would eventually bring us back together. However, I never imagined that my approach would lead to an unexpected confession. One evening, as soon as she got back from a trip, she began the conversation with a surprising question. "Why are you so good to me? I am trying to push you away, and you are doing this to me." Her voice trembled with emotion as she broke down in tears. It was at that moment that she confessed something that shattered my understanding of our marriage. Admitted to having an affair with her much younger colleague, someone she had been traveling with for work for the past 4 months. When she spelled everything out, I felt an overwhelming emptiness. Instead of the anger or the need to retaliate that many might expect in such a situation, I felt numb. I even responded by saying, "If this is what you want, then more power to you." After that, I smiled weakly and went to watch a football match, trying to escape the painful reality of the situation. I couldn't understand why I had reacted in such a calm, detached manner, almost as if I had allowed myself to be manipulated into submission, a state I never thought I could find myself in. In the following days, the house was filled with an awkward silence. I tried to avoid talking about the incident and even spent extra time at the office, not knowing how to face her or the children. The weight of the confession hung heavily over me, and I found myself caught between a deep sense of betrayal and the inability to express my true feelings. I was trapped in a confusing mix of shock, emptiness, and resignation. Then, one night, my wife approached me with an unexpected offer. After putting the kids to bed, she suggested that we have sex, perhaps in a misguided attempt to mend our relationship. Logically, I knew that I should have reacted with anger or stormed out, but I was so numb that I just let it happen. That night, she was more wild and passionate than ever before, almost as if she believed that her intensity could erase the betrayal. But for me, it was just another reminder of the shattered trust that lay between us. Now, with the house quiet and the children fast asleep, she sits beside me and asks, "Where do we go from here?" I find myself at a loss for words. My emotions are tangled in confusion and sorrow, and I do not know how to express what I truly feel. I keep questioning whether I have allowed myself to be manipulated all along, wondering if my constant support and understanding somehow made it easier for her to stray from our marriage. In my heart, I know this is not just about a physical betrayal. It is about the loss of trust and the realization that our relationship was built on secrets and hidden truths. I have always believed in unconditional love and support, and now I am forced to confront the reality that those ideals may have left me vulnerable. I remain unsure of what the future holds for us. All I can do now is take time to reflect, heal, and try to understand my own feelings better. The journey ahead is uncertain, and I wonder if it is possible for love and trust to ever be rebuilt after such a painful revelation.
My husband had an affair with my best friend. Should I get a divorce? I always believed my life was perfect. My husband, Mark, 39, and I, Sarah, 37, had been married for 7 wonderful years. Together we raised our lively 5-year-old son, and Mark also had a 9-year-old son from his previous marriage. Our blended family felt complete, and I trusted that our love was strong enough to weather any storm. I never imagined that the betrayal would come from the 2 people closest to me. One ordinary day, I received a confession from my best friend, Emily, 36. We had known each other for years, and I had always relied on her for support and honesty. That day, however, Emily's tone was different, hesitant, remorseful, and heavy with regret. She sat me down in a quiet corner of our favorite cafe, her eyes downcast as if she were carrying an unbearable weight. With a trembling voice, she revealed that she and Mark had an affair that began last year and ended around Christmas 2024. I remember feeling a strange mix of shock and disbelief. Emily explained that the affair started when she noticed a distance between us that she couldn't quite pinpoint. She admitted that, while we had been close for years, she had always sensed something unusual in the way I sometimes reacted to Mark's actions. At first, I brushed it off as nothing more than normal fluctuations in any long-term relationship. I never imagined that her hidden feelings would lead her to cross a line I thought was sacred. According to Emily, the affair began in October 2024. It was after a children's Halloween party that she felt a surprising attraction toward Mark. She said that even though she loved her own husband, their marriage had lost its spark. Her sex life had dwindled, and the romance she once cherished was gone. At that party, something shifted inside her. Even though she had always admired what I had a stable and loving relationship, she began to see Mark in a new, dangerous light. At first, Emily claimed it was just innocent flirting. She mentioned that a few casual texts were exchanged between her and Mark, under the guise of asking for advice about her troubled marriage. I had always thought it was natural for friends to seek comfort in each other during difficult times. However, the conversation soon took a turn. The texts became more suggestive, more daring. Before long, what started as harmless advice turned into an intimate exchange of sex messages. Emily admitted that her texts grew bolder and more flirtatious as she struggled with her growing attraction. The confession hit me hard as she continued. Emily told me that after those initial texts, they began meeting in secret during the weekdays. She estimated that they had been together around 20 times. Each meeting was filled with passion, but also with a deep sense of guilt. Both of them knew that what they were doing was wrong, yet the allure of forbidden desire overpowered their better judgment. They eventually decided to end the affair around Christmas, driven by the overwhelming weight of their conscience. Hearing this, my heart broke in more ways than one. I felt betrayed not only by Mark, who I had believed was devoted to me, but also by Emily, my so-called best friend. I had trusted her with my secrets, my joys, and my sorrows, never expecting her to become entangled with the person I loved the most. The revelation left me feeling hollow, as if all the love and trust I had built over the years were now crumbling to dust. Throughout that difficult day, I was overwhelmed by a tidal wave of emotions. I felt anger, confusion, sadness, and deep sorrow. The shock was so intense that I found it hard to even form a coherent thought. When I received messages from Mark while I was still trying to process the confession, I pretended to be busy. My mind was in a fog, and I couldn't decide whether to confront him immediately or to take some time to process everything. As the day wore on, my body reacted to the emotional turmoil. I ended up throwing up twice, as if my body was physically rejecting the betrayal. Every fiber of my being was screaming for an explanation, for some way to mend the broken trust that now lay shattered on the floor of my heart. I knew that soon Mark would be returning from a short weekend trip with his oldest son, and the thought of confronting him filled me with dread. I spent the day in a state of suspended disbelief, pacing back and forth and trying to gather my thoughts. Part of me wanted to call him immediately and demand an explanation. Yet, another part of me hesitated, wondering if it would be better to remain silent for a while, to delay the confrontation until I could think clearly about what to do next. I felt torn between the need for immediate confrontation and the desire to carefully plan my next move. Every moment of waiting felt like an eternity, with the truth of the situation growing heavier in my mind. As I prepared to pick Mark up from the airport that evening, I felt as though I were standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to jump or to retreat. I couldn't help but replay the events in my head. The texts, the secret meetings, and now this confession from Emily. I thought about all the moments when Mark had reassured me with romantic gestures, when he had been so attentive and loving that I never suspected he was capable of such betrayal. It all felt like a cruel twist of fate. In the quiet moments before his return, I sat alone with my thoughts, trying to muster the courage to face him. The hurt was overwhelming, and every thought of his charming smile or gentle touch now became tainted with betrayal. I questioned everything I had ever known about our relationship. How could the man I loved be capable of such deceit? And why would my best friend, someone who was supposed to be my pillar of support, involve herself in this scandal? In that moment of solitude, I wondered what the future held for me. The thought of confronting both Mark and Emily was terrifying, yet I knew that hiding the truth would only lead to more pain in the long run. I had a choice. I could either continue to pretend that nothing was wrong, or I could face the painful truth and decide how to move forward. The decision was mine, and it would shape the rest of my life. As the hours ticked by, I began to draft what I would say. I considered expressing my hurt and disappointment calmly, but my mind was clouded by raw emotion. The simple, everyday words I had always used to communicate with Mark now felt inadequate to capture the magnitude of the betrayal I felt. Yet, I knew I had to speak my truth no matter how difficult it might be. When Mark finally walked through the door that night, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. The air was thick with unspoken words and shattered trust. I watched him, trying to decipher any sign of guilt or regret, but he appeared as cheerful and composed as ever. His presence was a painful reminder of the life we had built together, life that was now marred by secrets and lies. In that quiet, tense moment, I resolved that I would no longer allow the deception to rule my life. I needed time to think, to heal, and to decide whether I could ever forgive him. The road ahead was uncertain, and the prospect of rebuilding trust seemed almost impossible. Yet, amidst the heartbreak, I clung to the hope that I would eventually find a way to reclaim my sense of self. Looking back on that day now, I see it as the turning point in my life, a moment when the world as I knew it shattered into pieces. It was a day filled with painful revelations and difficult choices. Though the betrayal cut deep, I realized that I had the strength to endure it, to rise above the despair, and to eventually forge a new path forward. The journey to healing would be long and arduous, but I was determined to rediscover my worth and rebuild my life on my own terms. In the end, the truth had set me on a path of self-discovery and resilience. I learned that sometimes the people we trust the most can hurt us in ways we never imagined. And while the pain of betrayal may never completely fade, it can also be the catalyst for a new beginning, a chance to redefine who we are and what we truly deserve. That night, as I sat in the quiet of our home, waiting for the storm of confrontation to break, I promised myself that I would not let this betrayal define me. I would face the challenges ahead with courage, even if it meant stepping into the unknown alone. And though the wounds were fresh and the future uncertain, I held on to the belief that I could eventually find peace and happiness once again.